I'm Harlan Cohen, and this is Before College TV. Today, we are with a panel of WashU students, Washington University. WashU, you know who that is, right? Everybody? Kyle, can you show us?
I can. There it is. Washington University in St. Louis.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears, right. And everyone is here. And this is such an interesting mix because today we have current students or a current student, and then we have 3 recent grads. That's correct. Am I right or am I right?
Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah.
I'm right. And what's really cool about this group is when we reached out, they were all so excited. Like, I mean, you all must love WashU, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
it's important to you. And I know Helen, those you could see Helen, and we'll get to know everybody. Why don't I just, so everyone can know Helen, you can just wave and say hello. And just,
Hi.
that's Helen. And then we've got Kyle. There's Kyle. And then we've got Anne.
Hello.
And there's Anne, and Anne's a current student. And then we got Jack. You know Jack,
Hey,
right?
everyone.
Yeah, and there's Jack. And what's cool is, Helen, tell us where you are right now and what time it is.
Yeah, so I'm Helen. I graduated in 2019 from WashU. I was working abroad after graduation, and coronavirus happened. And so I was actually traveling a little bit at the time and ended up in Kathmandu, Nepal, where I was trekking. And then I decided to kind of shelter in place and work remotely, which my job does allow, which is really nice. And yeah, it's around 5:52 a.m. over here, but it's okay because I already have to get up early for my job normally because of time zone. Yeah, so I naturally wake up at like 4:30 or to 6 in the morning now.
Okay, because I thought you were amazing to kind enough. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I love anything so much to get up that early and to show up live, but you're very generous. What's your job? What are you doing?
So I am currently like an adjunct lecturer at a small university in Beijing, but obviously can't go back there now because they suspended resident permits for foreigners. Yeah. So I just decided to shelter in place. So I'm basically all of the Zoom university classes that maybe Anne has to take, like I have to administer those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and teach. And it's been honestly, education innovation. I've like thought about how can I make an online classroom during a quarantine be really exciting. And with technology, like connecting like guest speakers or panelists, like doing that through Zoom, like kind of what we're doing right now. And I really kind of enjoyed thinking about how can we make education like really robust and awesome for our students, even situation. So a lot of problem solving, even though I'm in a room most of the day.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating that you're here. And for anyone who wants to travel and do international instruction, I think you'd be a great resource because you've done so many interesting things. And I can tell you're also really nice. I could be wrong, everyone. Do you know... Does anyone really know Helen? Well,
of course.
Helen by show of hands.
I mean, Helen and I actually met her first day of freshman year. She and I lived on the same freshman floor. So that's how I got to know her. And
Danforth 3.
Right. So where did you meet? Explain that the language that you're speaking.
Sure. So all freshmen on WashU's campus live in the student housing on the South 40, which is the south portion of campus. And it's pretty much, well, with a little bit of selection on what kind of room you want, it's basically random where you get assigned. And my roommate and I got assigned onto Helen's floor. So our building was called Danforth and we were on the 3rd floor. So Danforth 3.
Danforth 3. That makes a lot of sense. And then Helen. So Helen, are you the same age, or how did you guys interact? When was it freshman? You were both freshmen?
Yes, we were both freshmen living on Danforth 3, and were we on the same side of the hallway, Jack? I do not.
I was on the south side of the hall, or the east side. Sorry.
You think I know directions?
Yeah, directions. Yeah, that's talking another language. I just know
when you go up the stairs, is it left or right?
When you're facing the common room.
Yes.
I went left.
Okay, me too. So so we lived in the same hallway basically. And it is important to know that WashU does have co-ed housing. Some universities may not. But WashU, for both their modern housing, which is what Jack and I lived in, and their traditional housing, which is more communal style, it's both co-ed. So yeah, I was like, oh, hi, Jack. And then we like, there was a common room. We hung out there, and that's how we met.
Right. And you're friends this many years later. And
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I feel so old right now.
And Jack, do you feel like Helen is a nice person?
Yeah, of course.
Right. Well, you were an RA, right, Helen?
Yeah. I was in last year of college, and yeah, but I decided to be an RA. You could preference kind of where you wanted to be an RA, hopefully. And I had lived in a modern dorm my freshman year. I had lived in like a modern dorm, but for more common space ones in my sophomore year. Then I lived off campus my junior year. And so I was like, well, the last box to check is to live in a traditional dorm. So I also really like the traditional dorm because there was a really big sense of community, because you do strip away the barriers that modern housing has, which is like the really nice bathroom, the really nice like walls, whatever, in some ways. But at the same time, the community feel of a traditional living is really amazing. I don't know if anybody else here lived Lee or Bo or okay.
Also again.
Wow.
Yeah, Team Danforth.
Yeah. And
hold on. No. We got to throw the crow.
Are you Dardic?
I was Dardic, and we were part of the Wayman Crow Residential College. And each of us has kind of a sign and an animal. So we were the crows. So we would always do this in our res college, and the Wiggy people can explain theirs.
This is a walrus.
Yeah, we were the walrus.
It's a walrus.
No, the school came up with it. We did not have those creative.
So
this was I was a giraffe my senior year for Lebo, and this was the symbol because, and also you don't know what a sound a giraffe makes, so it's really hard for us to do cheers because mean, what does a giraffe sound like?
Right. That's tricky, but it's nice that you have this sense of community and that you made your friends. Kyle, is that where you made some of your closest friends? Well, let's take you to your first year. I know Kyle's going back a little bit, and Kyle's from Connecticut. You're from West Hartford, Connecticut. You're a graduate of William H. Hall High School. You graduated WashU in 2018. You received a BS in chemical engineering and a second major in economics. That's a lot to do, man. Why?
Yeah.
Why'd you do that?
Well, I don't know. I still don't know.
What's the point?
So here's my educational background. Definitely, I would say is a little bit atypical. So I kind of, high school, I loved math. I was always pretty good at math and really liked it. And then I took AP chemistry during my junior year of high school, and I was like, oh, I like this. How could I do math and chemistry? And that kind of equals chemical engineering. So I'm like, okay, that makes logical sense so far. And then my senior year of high school, I took economics. And I was like, oh, I like this too. How do I do that? And my teacher actually in my senior year of high school was admitted to WashU to get her PhD in economics. Ended up not going for the PhD because she decided she wanted to actually teach high school, and just did a master's more locally to where she was located. But she knew all about WashU and couldn't say enough good things. So, and she was like, you're definitely going to end up in economics. I'm like, nah, I don't know. Maybe I'll think about it. But basically what happened is first year, like you said, I got to campus, started taking the chemical engineering classes. I liked them. It was really a great first year. Took a couple econ classes in there as well. And I figured, you know what, why don't I try to just do two majors? And I was really good with working, really lucky and just, thought through how to double count things intelligently and how to use my AP credits from high school to my advantage to be able to kind of use my chemi electives and my econ electives and kind of cross-pollinate. So I was able to, get through all of that without really actually doing any additional credits. So it was definitely an interesting experience, but my best friends are without a doubt from Washington University. And, it all starts with the first year experience and in the res colleges. And speaking of that, I think one thing I definitely have to make a plug for is Congress of the South 40. Since we're on the res life train, Jack definitely has never heard me talk about this before.
No, never.
Not at all. But we
tell me about the
have,
Congress of the South 40 and what CS 40 is.
Explain what the South 40 is.
Absolutely. Here we go. In 30 seconds. So basically, like we said, we have all these res colleges. We all have our signs, and there's 10 residential colleges. And basically what they do is they assemble a college council of approximately usually 5 to 15 folks per res college. And each of them does event programming just for the res college. And then the broader organization kind of brings all those people together, and they call that Congress of the South 40 because all the res colleges are on what they call the South 40 on campus,
Gotcha.
40 acres on the south end of campus. And then there are 15 sophomore leaders that kind of run the whole organization and put on events for all the res colleges together. So during my first year, I was the vice president of the Wayman Crow College Council. So just for my residential college.
We understand now Wayman and Crows, because the crow, what's the crow signal?
Right here.
Right. So you would do this.
I would do
there
that.
We go. So it's all coming together.
Exactly. And I still do it to this day when I find
Right.
the right people. And yeah, so my sophomore year, I was very lucky to be the speaker of the Congress of the South 40. So really got to kind of lead the vision and run the organization with my amazing officer team, and got to really start meeting the administrators and met the chancellor a couple of times starting in my sophomore year. And it was just really such an awesome experience. And it's also, what's led me to a lot of other my involvement, which I'm sure we'll get into all that stuff later. But it just the connections in CS40 are second to none, and I can't thank that experience enough.
Yeah,
it's just great.
Jack, were you part of it as well?
No, I was not part of CS40.
You just listened to him talk about it a lot?
Yeah, well, Kyle and I didn't meet, I think, officially until sophomore year, but that's when he was the speaker of CS40. So I heard him speak about it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so that's great. It's an old memories. Now, Anne, you are surrounded by some wise people. Right. They've been there and done that. And Anne, I want to get into you and your life. And, you're from Sunnyvale, California. You went to Homestead High School. I've actually visited Homestead. It's a great place.
Okay.
Yeah. You are it's the Olin Business School. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
And I like to share this, for people who are watching, instead of us just, you slowly revealing it, let's just, let them know. Let's just reveal, because if there's someone who's interested in something that you have all experienced, what I ask people to do is reach out to you, right? Like, are you comfortable with people reaching out to you?
Absolutely.
Like legit. Like, Kyle, are you okay?
Like, what do you do other than reach out?
Absolutely. Anyone, I'll respond to every message. Jack can second that.
100%.
Yeah, and Jack, you could forward the messages to Kyle if you can.
I think I can handle my messages, but if I get overwhelmed, I know where to go.
Right. Well, I know you've included a social media account where you are encouraging people. I think that's the thing. People are really scared to reach out, and especially the fact that you are all have so accomplished and you've done so much. It's really intimidating to do that. Now, Anne, you are class of 2022, so that means that you just finished your sophomore year. Is that right? Second year?
Yeah, we're currently
finishing. Right, you're currently doing it. So, Anne, take us to, let's see, it is now 7:19 here in Chicago at WashU. Do you mind if I call it WashU, or do I have to say Washington University?
No.
WashU, that's the way to go.
I just feel like it's WashU, right? So Anne, it is 7:20 on the 21st of April at WashU. The world hasn't turned upside down. You are on campus. Tell me, and if you need a moment to really take yourself to that moment, where would you be? What would you be doing right now if you weren't here?
Easy. This is so easy. It's a Tuesday night, and I think for Kyle, I think he knows. Tuesday night means it's Senate and Treasury and Student Union, which is our undergraduate student government. So like there's CS40, which Kyle touched on a little bit earlier, which kind of is the student government for the residential area, but then there's SU, which is student government for like the entire undergraduate body. And so every Tuesday night, our Senate and Treasury have their, like, usually it's like 2 or 3 hour meetings.
They were 4 when I was there.
Oh yeah.
So you're part of the Senate. So you're meeting as part of the student union. It's the student union government, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. And now you're executive vice president. Okay. I got that right, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And you're a sophomore, you're finishing your second year. So that would tell me that you're pretty ambitious, right? Like, how did you go from just walking on campus to being the executive vice president?
Yeah, I mean, I always had like I was a big student government kid in high school, and so that was kind of the logical route for me when I got to college, and as I'm sure many of you guys might be. But I stepped onto campus and I saw Senate as a really great way to get to know the campus. Honestly, I think like that's something that pervades every extracurricular that I do on campus. Is like I like to be a representative of WashU, as so many people on this call also are. And so to me, like joining student government was like the ideal way to kind of get to know the campus and get to know the people, and also like get to know like. Sorry.
Were you scared to just jump in? Are you good with risk taking and rejection? Are you shy, or how do you do that?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think it's something about WashU, honestly, that makes things not very intimidating to join. I don't know if you guys have had the same experience, but like joining a club or joining an organization in college, you think that it might be kind of intimidating to get into it, but I think it's something about the small community feel at WashU, like the way that Kyle. We've never met before in person because we never overlapped at WashU, but just because we were both in SU at some point in time, he was able to reach out to me, and like we were able to like get on this call together. And so it's like little things like that make it very unintimidating, I think, to join anything at WashU.
Yeah, I think that's really come through, and I try to be objective when having these conversations, but just the feel that I get, I mean, the excitement that you all have for each other and for your school is it's a really wonderful thing. I mean, it's really special and it really stands out. Jack, getting back to your experience at WashU, when you think of, it's gonna be a two-parter, okay, man? You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, and if you don't want to answer this, if it's too uncomfortable, you don't have to answer this. All right, but I'd love for you to reveal something that maybe other people don't know. But when you look back at your college experience, what's the one moment that makes you fill with the most joy when you just kind of look in the rearview mirror? Do you have one of those?
Fill with the most joy.
Overflow. Your cup overflows when you go.
Yeah.
That moment.
So I'm debating between two different scenarios.
Me too.
Right? Well, one of them is obviously, walking across the stage at graduation and, getting my diploma at the end of college, which I feel like that is for everyone. But another thing that was really big for me was, so I came into school in the College of Arts and Sciences. So the way it's set up is there's a bunch of different colleges at the school. And when I applied as an undecided major into the College of Arts and Sciences.
Okay.
But by the end of my sophomore year, I had to declare my major. So I ended up transferring into the engineering school and declaring a double major in computer science and finance. So I went from an undeclared major in the College of Arts and Sciences to a declared double major in the engineering school and then a second major in the business school. And I talked to my counselor at school a handful of times. I talked to my parents about it, and just like that sigh of relief, like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I can focus my coursework, and like I'm really excited about that. Just after getting off the phone with my dad and immediately going online to submit my major, just a weight was lifted off my chest, and it felt unreal.
Wow, it sounds like it would be like a weight on your chest because you're a double major. Like, it's not like, I mean, you're like taking on the world and you're like, oh, phew, now I know what I need to do.
Yeah, well, similar to what Kyle said, you'd be surprised at how much overlap there is. Just for example, in the engineering school, we have to take a statistics course. In the business school, we have to take 2 statistics courses. But the 2 business school statistics courses counted for my engineering statistics course. So there's just so many ways where the majors can overlap, and it was super helpful.
Yeah, that's interesting. It sounds like you get a lot of support. Kyle, you seem like a guy who has that attitude of it always works out. Would you say that's true?
I would, absolutely. And it's been proven, just time and time again, going through WashU and even going through life. There's definitely been challenges that I've experienced that have thrown me for a loop throughout life. And I think that having that attitude has been the only thing that's really kept me going, whenever there's times that are tough. So
the specifics, I always love the specifics because I'm going to get into why you all decided WashU and where else you were interested in going. I think it's always fun when people are high achievers and get into a great school and get rejected by a bunch of other schools. So, if you want to share your rejections with other people, I know they will love that, knowing that you can be okay and get rejected. But in terms of the most challenging time, did any of you have a tough moment? Like Helen, do you remember being, really distraught and, needing help? It seems like you're nodding your head, so I'd love to.
Yeah,
I'll stop talking. You take over.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm really passionate about talking about issues related to mental health and well-being. Part of that is because whenever you go into college, there's it's a big roller coaster because you're adjusting to a lot of things. And I think one of the things that people don't often talk about is the transition between sophomore and junior year. Oh, and okay. But it's, for me, I had moved off campus. Mm-hmm. And when you move off campus, there is a sense of community off campus, but there's also this weird transition period where you're isolated from on campus. At least that's what I experienced. And in that time period, I had to, WashU was very pampering in some ways. So suddenly having to meal prep or time the amount of walking time between my apartment and campus. And then other than transportation, walking back at night because I was a really involved individual. And so at night I would have a lot of practices or just various meetings. But because I lived off campus now, I had to time how do I walk back by myself at midnight? And
how do you do that?
Well, there's multiple different transportation systems WashU actually offers. There's something called the Circulator, if it's still in operation, which is a small mini bus around campus, and it stops at various population points.
And is it still around?
Oh yeah, I love
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then at one point, I had a bike too, but yeah, it's not it's still pretty safe, I would say, to go back. But that transition was really hard because at that point in time when everybody's splitting off into their own roads in life, you feel like you're kind of going through it alone. And that plus I was preparing to go abroad. And so that was another isolating sort of experience in some ways. And so that was what I would say was all of those events kind of culminating in junior year. Junior year was very, very challenging because I was going through the second round of transition. When you enter college, you're leaving home perhaps for the first time, you're adjusting. But the fact is you're kind of in community with each other. Residence halls are really lively. It's pretty awesome. Everything's all congregated. But when you move off campus, and I guess when we graduate too, you really have to find your own group of people. It sounds so cliche, but you really have to find your own group of people and find your own rhythm, or else it's pretty disorienting. So I would say that was one of the challenging moments was adjusting.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I talk a lot about people, places, and patience. It's kind of the three P's of where are the places you're going to put yourself where you can do things that you love to do and surround yourself with people who love similar things. And then who are the people that you want to be and become. And I think that all of you really, have done that. And it's interesting, Helen, hearing from you because, when you're not at such a close-knit community and you are isolated right now in Nepal, it's interesting to see that while you're there, you still have your people, you still have this place in terms of us all getting together, which is a really wonderful thing. But being intentional about that's really important. So, Anne, tell me, did you really want to go to WashU? Was this your first choice, or was there another school? And we know you're happy and you love it and it's great and you're a leader, but kind of curious to know your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I ED'd to Northwestern, not WashU at all. From California, I think it's like a very specific, maybe California thing where honestly not a lot of people here like know what WashU is. It feels like because it's very much a like more Midwestern slash like East Coast heavy school, and so especially with Bay Area, like we have like a lot of like the UCs around us or like other schools, and so it kind of just gets forgotten a little bit. The reason why I ended up actually going to WashU or actually applying to WashU in the first place, this is so dumb, but it was because of a crush. I had a crush on this guy in my freshman year. He was first chair cello. It's really, really nerdy. Like got into WashU and I was like, like, what is this? Like I was a freshman and I had no idea what WashU was. So I went online and I like Googled it, and it was like kind of like the first time that I saw, like the campus, like the really, really gorgeous, like Brookings Hall picture online and stuff. And then it was the first time that I like saw like how academically like rigorous the school was and everything. So it was always kind of in the back of my head. And then in senior year, like this boy, whoever he was, like, I don't even know anymore where he is, totally forgot about him, but remembered that I needed to apply to WashU. And so it was definitely one of my like top choices, not my first choice by any means, I would say, but at the end of the day, like it works out. And yeah, you're right. Like I'm so happy here and couldn't really imagine myself anywhere else.
Yeah, there's a lot of follow-up questions, but when you got your notice from Northwestern, so you ED'd, did you get waitlisted or did you just get rejected?
Yeah, I was deferred. So like that's deferred. Like they push you to like the regular round. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got deferred, right? But you didn't get what you wanted, and was that devastating for you? Because no,
yeah,
it was devastating.
Yeah, no, I found out right before I went to my winter formal. And so, I was like with all my friends and I just got the notification and I ended up like, I don't know if I cried or not, but I was definitely a bummer to the party, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks for smiling through it, because I know there's so many people who don't always, it doesn't always go that way. And I think when you're again, a high achiever, and you all had to be, and I'm sure continue to be, when you don't get what you want, it can really rattle you when you get rejected. And I think it's great to come through that. Was there anybody else who, and one more thing, if anybody, we're going to show pictures. We show like, I pull stuff from like the admissions and we show like pictures of WashU. And I think this would be a good time to actually show pictures when you were talking and that. And even when I'm talking again, we could show more pictures. But it's a beautiful campus. It's unbelievable. It's so pretty. It's such I tell you, I meet so many students, and when I meet grads and I meet people who are grads of WashU, there's an enormous amount of pride and connection and community. So when you graduate, clearly you're going to have a great connection. When it comes to St. Louis, I know you're from California. I know you're all from different places. None of you are from St. Louis. For people who are like, I don't know about St. Louis, like, why St. Louis? I know St. Louis, so I got some positive feelings, but just tell us a little bit about that. Whoever wants to jump in, jump in.
I can, or Jack, did you jump in?
No, Helen, you can go for it.
Okay, yeah. So, like Anne, I did not, well, actually maybe not like Anne, because Anne was like going for the Midwest. So at least like the geographic area was about the same. But I'm from the East Coast. I went to high school in Richmond, Virginia, and being on the East Coast, I don't know if anyone else is from the East Coast. I think maybe
Kyle is.
You can confirm or deny this, but there's a lot of East Coast centrism when it comes to the college app process sometimes, because all the Ivies are like yonder, like up north.
All by me.
Yeah. So it's when you think of like colleges, you really don't. I didn't know WashU existed until October of my senior year.
Really?
Yeah, really. And I'll tell you why I found out they existed. It's because back then, for those kiddos who are applying to college right now, we still got paper mail. And WashU just kept sending me mail. And I was like, nowadays people just like all the spam in the emails like, hi, Helen, you're one of ours. Like you might be interested in this so-and-so college, but WashU painstakingly, maybe not environmentally sustainably, but sent paper mail. And every time I was like, wow, they seem to be pretty persistent as like a method of trying to get students to come. And Then I actually originally applied early action to Georgetown School of Foreign Service. Got deferred. Later on, got rejected, but it doesn't matter now. And for WashU, because they sent me so much paper mail, I looked into the school, and I really had not thought about St. Louis. And I really don't think I thought about St. Louis until much later when the decision all came out. And for the relationship with St. Louis, I would say I think I have learned so much by going to school in the Midwest in my 4 years. I don't know if anyone else can attest to that, but growing up,
I'd love to touch on some stuff after you're done. Yeah.
So I grew up on the East Coast, but also like capital of like the former Confederacy, like South, like, and then there was this idealism of California, etc., because that's how the U.S. kind of works sometimes. But the Midwest really didn't think about it, whether it was in politics, whether it comes into like social justice work, really never thought about the Midwest. And when I arrived in St. Louis, I think that was around when it was 1 year after Ferguson, Missouri, that like a lot of discussion surrounding race and inequities. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, St. Louis is very so-called dangerous. And I like to say no, because I think in any place, there's your sense of safety and decisions you make, and there's a lot of stereotypes or perceptions. And your relationship when you go to college is not just with the university, hopefully, it's also with your surroundings and your engagement with the community. And I thought that going to St. Louis at that time period during where there was a lot of active conversation surrounding what is Washington University's role in St. Louis, as cliche as it sounds, they've been thinking a lot about that, was a great formative time for me to reflect on my own identity and what it means in American politics, what it means for my role in the future. And I got involved with some mentoring programs to kind of get to know the city. And I know Washington University specifically has an interesting office called the Gephardt Institute for Civic Engagement. And it's like all of the little volunteer offices you had in college, they kind of have that at WashU as well. And it's trying to get students to be more engaged with the city that they are going to live for about 4 years. And I really appreciate that. Ended up in St. Louis and never thought I would, but I learned a ton from just being removed from the environment that I was used to.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm looking at some of the things that you've done, being part of the Pan Asian Mental Health Conference. That sounds so fascinating. Also, WashU Ross, is that right? Ross?
Yeah, it's Ross. It's a dance team.
But the East Asian Cultural Show, the Lunar New Year Festival, East Asian Cultural Show. But it seems like your identity is and culture and connection and community have continued to play a role. And it sounds like being at WashU and being in St. Louis somehow ended up making that easier, or I don't know.
I think something that we should talk about when we're going to college is how for different, whether it's first generation or low income or different races, going to college is a kind of a different experience. Like if I were to go to the UC, just demographically speaking, it would be such a different experience than if I went to WashU. And so coming to WashU, I think because when you are a minority at an institution, a higher education institution, you have to kind of navigate that and what your role is. And so I think just constantly in my own life, kind of fit in with a lot of things. It allowed me to be more open-minded when I came to St. Louis to the opportunities that presented themselves for me to learn. It sounds really cliche in some ways, but I'm sure many of our peers can attest to that. Kind of your identity really does shift, whether it's religion, like race, or any involvement, your passions, it does shift when you come to college because you find like-minded people and then you try to think of ways to take your passion and make it like tangible in the real world.
Yeah. And I want to talk about, I know Kyle, you have something you need to just share and I want you to share that, but I want to talk about how when you get to college, how you were able to find your places and find your people. And was that a hard thing to do? Was it an easy thing to do? So that others who are thinking of, the social aspects, that's a real big piece. They can relate. Kyle, did you have something you wanted to add? Just being in beautiful, I think St. Louis is beautiful. My in-laws a lot of my in-laws' family, I married into a family that has a lot of St. Louis ties. So we would go to Forest Park and go to the museum and I know Forest Park is like
going outside in general. Oh,
it is so gorgeous, and people from other parts of the country don't understand. It really is. It's just a gorgeous place. I was thinking I was going to compare it to when you're in DC and you have all these, you get to the monuments and this beautiful area, and Forest Park kind of has that feel of just this oasis in the middle of this place. But Kyle, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah, no worries at all. But yeah, I can kind of, just kind of provide a little bit of my St. Louis experience, and I can also hit on your question about, finding my people, because I have so many thoughts, and I'll do my best to condense them. So, I'd say for St. Louis, so when I was going through the college search process, I visited 15 schools. 14 of them were in the Northeast by me. The farthest one was in Pittsburgh, and then WashU. And my mom kept telling me, like, University of Virginia was too far, and all these schools were too far, except WashU. She was okay with that one because she said, that's a good one. So I was like, okay, well, that's good to know. Let me do the visiting process and all that. And WashU, I actually applied early decision to WashU. I originally had planned on doing early decision to one of the Ivy League schools, and ended up at the last minute changing my decision based on.
Where were you torn between? What was the Ivy League school?
Cornell. So I was planning to do early decision there, and really what it came down to, Harlan, was that my high school had kind of placed expectations on me to go to an Ivy League school. And if I didn't achieve that, that was me not doing what everyone thought I should do. And, when it comes to college, it's really got to be what's best for you, not what's best for the kids in your high school. So, for me, Washington University, the nicest people are from St. Louis, WashU, the Midwest. I can't say enough good things. It made me relax. I mean, Jack knows. Jack has seen me stressed out probably more than anyone on this call. But, he's also seen times where I'm able to actually relax. And that's something I really had never had the opportunity to do until coming to WashU. And I had so many great mentors. From being from Connecticut, there's definitely a lot of stereotypes of, all the, rich white people, and that's really all there is. And, I hadn't really seen a lot of different parts of the world, and I was so enthused by the opportunity to get to know different cultures by coming to WashU, coming to school with people from all the states and from, I think it was like 50 different countries. And I remember I had a mentor that from Congress of the South 40, Veronica Scales. She's a director of residence life at UMD now. Uh-huh. She was the best, and she got me to really understand what it was like to be African American in a predominantly white institution, and just educated me in more ways than I could possibly list.
How did your paths cross?
So she was my advisor in CS40. So we are advised by a couple of folks from Residence Life, and she was an associate director of Res Life at the time. So that's where I got to know her. And I, immediately after meeting her, I knew that she was going to be able to teach me a great deal. And sure enough, it came true. And I can't say enough for how much I was able to learn out there. And I also got to interact with Professor Bob Hansman. And he's an architecture professor, and he knows a lot about the city. And he actually took us to this a bunch of areas north of the Del Mar Loop, which stereotypically people think that that's the bad area. But he proved in so many ways that it's just not true, and enlightened us in ways that I just never could have imagined. And I just, the opportunities to learn about other cultures and just be around the nicest people I've ever met, I can't say enough good things. So
that's super
kind of
cool.
Yeah, to your second point about finding my people, Harlan, it was easy because, after the first week I was a wreck. I was homesick. I was brutal. That week was bad. But once classes started, after we had orientation, everything just kind of fell into place. I started going to the CS40 meetings. I started going to class.
So were you like an anxious dude? Were you like kind of like high strung, anxious, uncomfortable? I'm just trying to paint a picture.
Yeah, you're right. That was me. I mean, in high school, I was always like, my shoulders were like this. And I'll admit, there was many times at WashU where I was like this, but there were also times where I was like this. And I had never really gotten that before.
That's right. And that's that piece of, because I think most people are anxious, high strung, nervous. The social piece is like really that's the piece where people struggle with the most. So, coming to a place like WashU and being someone who's inclined to be a little anxious and stressed out, like how do you even approach the first few days, the first few weeks? And also, Anne, if you can speak to that too, because you're on campus, that'd be great. But Kyle, you could just tell me, like, how'd you do it, man? How'd you get over the homesickness and that stuff?
Yeah, I think it just was a matter of opening up to people and telling them my story. And I've always been okay at that, but WashU made me really good at it. And WashU goes by a motto you got to know people by their name and story. And boy, is that true. It's not just a phrase that people throw around because it sounds good. It's true. And I kind of took that in stride and started, getting to know folks on my first year floor. That was really where it started. And I actually ended up meeting my roommate. He was on my first year floor, and I lived with him every year after that. And it kind of just came naturally. And CS40, like I said, I can't say enough good things. That's really what kind of got me kicked into gear with finding people. And I met a really awesome guy, Joey Vettiankel, and he happened to be also getting involved into the Tau Kappa Epsilon fraternity, which Jack and I joined as well at the same time. And after meeting him, he got me to think about Greek life, which, boy, was that on the last thing on my list. Oh yes, it was. My dad discouraged it in every way possible, and I still ended up doing it. And it just doing things joining organizations and getting opportunities that I never thought would be possible, just based on my upbringing and how in high school I was always just kind of that guy that was on the outside looking in. I was, people thought I was pretty smart, but nobody really wanted me in their group. I wasn't the in type of kid. And I finally got to be in the circle of people that I really love being around almost all the time at WashU. So that's just how I was able to adjust. You just started with a couple people. You got to know them. Hey, these people are really nice. And sure enough, it is true that it's a great atmosphere and really awesome people. And it just kind of was a domino effect from there.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I almost got a little emotional when you're an outsider or feel like you don't have your group.
Yep.
It's really nice to have that. I mean,
I never had it until WashU.
Yeah, I get that. That's a really wonderful thing. Jack, you were president of the Interfraternity Council.
Yeah.
So you love Greek life or you hate Greek life. We'll figure that out in a sec.
All right.
About that, but also just want to throw the rest of this out there. Captain of the school's archery team. So you are great with a bow and arrow. You can hunt. Do you hunt?
No, I don't hunt.
Okay. All right. No hunting. Because I was thinking maybe I'm from the Chicago area. We can go hunting because
you and I, we can go together. Right next door. I'm also from Chicagoland area.
Yeah, we could go out with our bow and arrow. I just use a spear. And then you also were the new education. You are the new member educator, Tau Kappa Epsilon. So that's really the Greek life piece. Let's talk about Greek life. Before I have you dig into Greek life, I just want to know, Anne, are you in a fraternity or sorority?
Yeah, I'm in. Oh, excuse me. I'm in a social sorority, Delta Gamma, and like Kyle, it was just like the last thing on my list.
Why was it the last thing on the list? You're not you don't want to do like Greek life?
No, it's just like there's like a certain stereotype, right? Like around Greek life.
Explain that and explain why you were wrong, because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, like in high school, like you kind of think that like people who are in Greek life, like at every school, and there's like nothing wrong with the stereotype is that like you just go out all the time and you like don't necessarily care as much about school, or like you're part of that like culture that like often is very isolating towards like marginalized identities and stuff like that, and like that just like wasn't something that was really wasn't something that I wanted to be a part of in high school. But then coming into WashU, like the fact that we have deferred recruitment, which is basically where we can't first semester can recruit into a fraternity or sorority until their second semester. That for me, I think was a big reason why I decided to do it, was because after you get the entire first semester to, really build that like real relationships with people who are like on your first year community floor. And you feel like you have a strong enough foundation to be able to venture out into something that you maybe weren't as comfortable with before. And then also just Greek life at WashU is just very different from what I like stereotypically thought it would be, but I'm sure Jack can also touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. So you're part of a social, you said a social sorority,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think that sometimes people are discouraged from even looking at certain schools because they see that there's a large Greek community. And it seems, again and again, I hear this, especially, I think that's a great question for anybody watching, of asking students who are in Greek life if they ever planned on doing it, because especially when you're like, no, this would never be me. So Jack, tell me about your Greek experience and how that impacted you.
Yeah, of course. So before school, I kind of knew I wanted to go to a fraternity. I grew up spending my summers at an all-boys sports camp up in northern Wisconsin, a little town called Minocqua, Wisconsin.
What camp?
Camp Kawaga.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an old boys sports camp, pretty much almost this is my Midwest showing almost in the UP, which is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. But I just spent time it was all boys, just like a fraternity. And that's when I was from 2007 and up until like 2019, I spent my summers there. And both my parents were involved in Greek life. They both went to University of Wisconsin. My dad was in a fraternity there. My mom was in a sorority there. So I kind of, grew up in a house where a lot of people were in Greek life. One of my uncles was in Greek life, and I kind of thought it was going to be Greek life until school started. So freshman year came around, and I was like, oh, this is all right. And then, so like Anne said, we don't get to rush first semester freshman year. So then we had second semester freshman year, and it was time for a rush. And I was like, I'm a little hesitant now. It's a lot of partying, a little bit more than I expected. And, that generic Greek life reputation, some of it is true, while a lot of it is false. And I was also a little sick during rush. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to wait until my sophomore year to rush. That's okay. So now I spent another summer at my camp, and I really just asked all the guys older than me about Greek life who were in fraternities, like, why'd you do it? What happened? And they told me the same thing that my dad told me, when I was younger. And he said, when you join a fraternity, it's an immediate group of friends. These people are going to be your friends for life, and like it is an immediate group of friends. And I know Kyle can definitely attest to this, but right when I walked in the house for open house for Greek life, like this was going to be my group of friends. I only rushed one fraternity. I got my bid, accepted it on the spot, didn't need any time to think about it. And overall, it was a great decision. And of course, I learned a lot about Greek life after that and with my involvement in IFC. But yeah, growing up, that was kind of my journey into Greek life.
Yeah. And when it comes to finding places, and I've run into this at similar schools, is you have a lot of students who are used to being involved. Then you get on campus and you try to get involved and you have to apply. And you don't always get it right away. Is that something that happens? And when it does happen, how do you work through that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's been a handful of programs that I applied to and didn't get accepted into. And
What? Let's get. I would love the
specific. So I love public speaking. I spoke all through high school. I spoke through college. That job I said for Major League Hacking involved a lot of public speaking.
Yeah.
And on my bucket list is to give a TED Talk. That's something I've always wanted to do. And we had a TEDx event at WashU, and I applied to speak there. It was just like a written form. There was no to make it to the second round. I didn't even make it to the second round. And I was like, oh, that's, something on my bucket list. I competitively spoke. I like to think I'm good at what I do. Maybe I'm not as good as I thought, but.
You still want to do that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. If I see one out there, what are you going to talk on? What do you want to say?
I have a handful of different stories
What's
that
one
I want
thing
to
you
share.
just want to say? Like, what's something that people need to hear?
Stress is like, the stress that you feel is very unwarranted. I am someone who is thankfully very low stress, and I think just like when I see my peers, even at WashU, who are very stressed out before an exam, like it's unnecessary. If we're both we wake up at 4 a.m. to cram for a noon exam, as was a common occurrence for me. Now, I'm not saying that's the best idea, but I'm sitting next to my friend on the couch and he's, freaking out, high stress, trying to memorize everything. It's just, it was way better for me to sit there calm and be like, okay, just learn the material and write down the answers on the exam.
Right. So it's unwarranted. It doesn't help.
Exactly.
The
At least
stress.
that's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, for the time capsule, I mean, the state of Illinois, we're on home shelter still. Everything's been pretty much shut down. So if there's ever a time to feel stressed and anxious, it's now.
Yeah.
You're chill, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Right. That's really great. You are all so generous. There's so many things I want to talk to you about, but I really want to respect your time. Students can't come on campus right now because of coronavirus. They can't walk and get that feeling that I'm sure you got, that said, this is where I want to go. What's your advice? And Helen, we could start with you, but what can students do, or what can students do to get that feeling? If they're not going to be able to walk on campus, and Anne, you can follow up.
Yeah, that's a good question because, like I mentioned earlier, I would go to WashU. But actually, so I applied for one of the university merit scholarship programs, and so I was selected as a finalist, and they flew me out to WashU in March. So it was really weird this year when they told us that the scholarship program wasn't doing a visitation, and students had to decide like where to go through a virtual scholarship like community, which is very weird to think about because I had that moment when I arrived on campus, never been there. It was beautiful spring, and I was suddenly with a group of other finalists who were really passionate about the world, who were genuinely kind people. I think some people who might be applying to colleges now, or maybe competing for financial aid related things, you'll find that some schools are really competitive to, like, you feel like you're like a bunch of obnoxious, really like pompous people around you. And I did not get that feeling at all when I arrived at WashU's campus. Like, everyone was genuinely passionate about the world. They were really interested in different intellectual things. And I was really excited to learn from these people really quickly. I'm sorry, my computer's making a bunch of noises, but I was really excited to feel that sense of community with them when I was able to visit. Of course, now that you can't visit, I think some of the biggest recommendations that I would give people is thinking about just talking to alumni of schools or talking to people who are going there right now, what it feels like, and genuinely asking the questions related to anything you want. There's nothing taboo. Like, for example, I wanted to talk about this earlier, but like financial aid, for example. It sounds like I'm just putting a plug for WashU programs, but I really think it genuinely matters.
This is so important, the money piece. Yeah.
Yeah, especially now during COVID-19, a lot of families are struggling financially. And I would just like to say WashU's student financial services, at least in my experience, has been quite kind. And at that moment in time, I remember I walked into their office and I talked to them about some things. And I think that if you have a lot of questions related to, can I afford WashU? Because WashU is quite a poshy, how do I say this? It is quite expensive to live at WashU. And it is quite, the tuition and everything, I mean, it's hard. So talking to financial services about that, and also
you just walk in and you can just walk in and just ask them questions, because people get all uptight when it comes to finances.
Yeah, no, I'm
how do you do that?
Talking. Yeah, so for me, I walked into, they have like I don't know if the office got relocated due to construction, but there was student financial services near where their admissions office was. Admissions is now moved. And going in and kind of like when you apply to WashU, and if you've applied for financial aid, now if you're Pell Grant eligible, there's also, if you don't know what Pell Grant is, ladies and gentlemen, it's like a federal government grant program. And I was paired, I remember there, other than your admissions portal, there's a My SF my financial something. There's a financial aid portal, and you log in, and you're paired with a financial aid counselor. And I emailed him, and I was like, "This is my situation. I have a lot of questions. Can I just when I visit, can I walk in and
can
talk?"
I ask you your situation? Did you have a lot of money? Did you not have a lot of money? I mean, and of course you can answer as much as you want, but like,
Yeah.
if you can get really specific for someone who can relate, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So my family was considered okay. So money. We don't really talk about income in the United States, but there's a bracket situation. Like there's low income, high income, middle income. My family, I didn't really know about my financial situation at all because I don't think, at least my parents were not very transparent about it until my senior year when I was applying to colleges. And we had to talk about applying for Pell Grants, applying for it's called the CSS profile, something the private institution one. And my mom had to circle an income bracket. And I was like, wow, okay, pressure is on to attend college with scholarships because I can't afford college at this rate. And then my mom lost her job like right before my senior year, which was very sad because then you just suddenly everything's uncertain, which I feel like a lot of students now during COVID will feel is you had, even those who applied to colleges and got a financial aid package and then suddenly their parents are laid off, have that conversation with the financial aid office because things do change. And so I went into senior year applying to colleges, and not just colleges, like there was also a full-time applying to scholarships portion. And so I ended up winning around like $13,000 in local scholarships, which was really, really awesome. But something to note for WashU specifically when it comes to financial aid, if I remember correctly, is if you have, if your scholarship money exceeds the tuition and room and board amount, if that makes any sense, they still do not deduct from their financial. What happens is you turn in those scholarships and they reimburse that into your bank account because they know that going to school is not just like paying tuition dollars. There's also like being part of a community, whether you're part of Greek life. There's also like living expenses. And so WashU, my main question when I went into the financial aid office was, I've worked so hard to earn these outside scholarships because at the time I didn't know if I could afford college. Is this money going away now? Or like, what does it mean? Like, because combining that with the financial package, I had a need-based financial aid package and the merit-based one. How does that all play in? And they were like, no worries. We know you worked really hard for your scholarships and we want you to keep them. And so I was able to use part of my outside scholarship money to fulfill like the rest of living expenses, but also like just be financially secure. And being financially secure when you're entering college is so difficult, but also it's so essential for your mind psychologically because you're just starting to make friends. And sometimes making friends in college means like, can we go out to dinner or can we do this activity? And to have some money under your belt from that scholarship money makes a huge difference in how you socialize with people.
So for the action of, yes, it's huge. And I know it's you've touched on so many. I want to be so respectful of all your time, but it's the money.
Yeah, no worries.
No. So cool. So tell me, when it came to getting that money, and if anybody else got money, I know a lot of students want money, they need money. Where was your best source when it came to the scholarship piece of where you're able to get that? And then also jobs. I know you were also an RA, which was a lovely, wonderful thing to do, a resident assistant, but you probably also got like sweet deal with that, right? Like free room and board, maybe?
Yeah, room and board. But what I also wanted to bring up, like the point about scholarship programs is WashU has some merit scholar. If you're not in college yet, check out their merit scholarship programs. They also have been better equipped now. Since when I entered my freshman year, they didn't have this program. In my sophomore year, they developed the Denote Scholars Program, which is it's not per se maybe money, but we know that students who are low income going to college have other struggles, like unseen ones. And so now they have a mentorship program for those who are first generation or low income coming onto campus, giving them like an academic support, grants you can apply to. And
are you a first gen student? Were you a first gen?
No, I'm not per se first. generation going to college. My parents did go to college, but my parents were immigrants, so college was very different
Yeah.
in a different country. Yeah. So, but a lot of these programs, I think WashU's really stepped up, and I recommend students to check it out and be really open about it, because WashU has been improving a lot on financial aid situations.
Sounds awesome. Does anyone have anything to add to finding money, getting money, making it more affordable, not being afraid by the sticker price or of the sticker price?
And I think this could be a great time to just mention the Opportunity Fund and options for people that once they're on campus to still be able to be involved in activities. So I'd probably defer to you, because I'm sure it's changed a bit since I was involved with it.
Yeah, oh my gosh, absolutely. So getting money, right? Like once you're at WashU, I think, so there are two actually really great funds that are run through SU Student Union. One of them is called the Opportunity Fund, and the other is called the Mental Health Fund. Both are relatively new, but basically I'm not super sure of the specifics, but of like how much money they have, but it's basically like there are two like grants almost, where like any student can basically go in, and for the Opportunity Fund you can apply for things like making events or like on campus, like any on campus involvement that you have, cheaper or just completely free. So for instance, like if you want to do Model UN at WashU and you need to pay like money for like a conference to like stay at a hotel or something like that, the Opportunity Fund is a place where you can go to like get funding for that. And then for the Mental Health Fund, that is something that, like, for instance, if you need to go off campus to see a therapist and you don't have the funds to be able to get transportation to be able to go to and from, the Mental Health Fund is a perfect place for that. So things like that, I think, help a lot in the littlest ways. But then there's also things like campus jobs, which I have one, and it's like, I think something that's awesome about like having a campus job at WashU. It's not just honestly to make money. For me, it's like something that I enjoy doing, and it's like
What's
a community that I feel a part of. So, and also like I get to build my resume a little bit like while I'm doing it. So
what job? What job do you have?
So I'm a DUXA, which is a Danforth University Center student assistant. They're all laughing because it's kind of it's like a funny thing at school, because DUXAs basically are like the face of like our DUC, which is our big like hub. I would say like on campus, where there's like a big dining hall and it's like an area where like a bunch of students like hang out. And so we offer we're basically like the customer service like front lines for that building. Yeah.
That sounds great. Is there another job or any other opportunity for students to make money that are great options if students are looking? Oh, and here's the other. I have that. I hate when I do this. I had a question, and the Opportunity Fund, right? That's what you call it, right?
Yes.
The Opportunity Fund. Is there stigma when people go in? I mean, a lot of people get really nervous asking for money. So, like, is it easy? How does that work?
Yeah, not at all. I would say that there's honestly like not a big barrier at all to accessing any of these funds. It's not like you have to like go necessarily like in person and like, like you're like exposing yourself and your situation to anyone around you. It's a very private sort of like application process. So I wouldn't say there's a stigma whatsoever,
Right.
actually.
Right. And I don't think there is at all. I'm a firm believer of you just ask. You ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. And when you ask at a place where there's so much community, people tend to get excited and want to answer. And all of you, I mean, I think that's the beautiful thing. And I try to get as many topics and specifics. So if there's somebody who has a similar major, or if there's someone who looks like somebody here or is from a similar part of the country, to reach out to everybody here, to reach out to Ann and Kyle and Helen and Jack. I want to wrap things up. If there's something I missed that you really feel is important that needs to be shared that I didn't touch on, I want to make sure that you share that. Is there anything on someone's mind where they're like, oh yeah, we need to share this. This is something that I want people to know about WashU or my decision or me. Is there anything you can think of? Okay, cool. Then the other question, yes.
Oh, wait, really quick. I wanted to add, if anyone here is like Greek life, I'm not sure, should I join or not join, which all of them had that same question. I ended up not joining Greek life. But I want to say what's very unique about WashU compared to many other campuses is that I have many friends in Greek life, even though I'm not in Greek life. And the people I know in Greek life are super duper committed individuals to whatever they're passionate about. And Greek life is just kind of like an additive to them. It's not their entire people, it's not their entire lives. And so if anyone is like, I don't know if I want to join Greek life, maybe financially it's not possible, or you're just not comfortable that way, it's okay. You don't have to. You can still get involved with other campus communities, but also you can still be friends with all these people who are in different circles.
Only about a third of the people are Greek at WashU, so it's not like it's 70% or anything like that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Are any of you in love right now? Any of you in love? Is anyone in love? No? Or in a serious relationship right now? You're all single? Sorry. This is an important question because this is people want to know, if they could find love. If a lot of you have graduated, 3 of you have graduated. I didn't know if maybe you found the love of your life at WashU, or you have a secret crush or fell in love, but it doesn't sound. I think, Helen, I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's complicated because it sounds like there might be some love in your life. No?
No, not at the moment. Thank you, Harlan, for bringing up this topic.
I think it's a valid topic. People want to know about relationships, about the hookup culture, about the social piece, and there's very little on that. This is my last question before I have you do your farewell. But when it comes to like dating, relationships, the social part of life there, how would you describe it?
Well, I can just step in and say, so I live in the Jewish community in North Chicago, and, similar to a lot of conservative Jews around the country, we only really date within the Jewish community. And thankfully, WashU has a very high population of Jewish students. So although I am currently single, there were a lot of people like me on campus in the Jewish community who were like-minded. And that was one of the big factors I did end up going to WashU, actually, was because of the Jewish community there.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that. I think the community, culture, religion, those are really important factors to find connection. I didn't mean to embarrass anybody with that.
It's okay.
And of dating, but I know that people think about that. I think it's really an important part. Is there anything else anyone want to add when it comes to love, relationships, and intimacy at WashU?
I would like to say this. I think that whether it's a romantic relationship or not, I have relationships with my friends that I would consider love. And I think that, quite honestly, that's the kind of culture WashU creates. And I really do mean it when I say I love my friends. I mean, I go back to campus as much as I can. Jack and I were really looking forward to being back on campus last weekend, or this past weekend, a few days ago, for a reunion. But that, of course, is postponed. I'm not going to say canceled because we're going to get that reunion rescheduled. But right now it's postponed. But it just shows it's such a magical place that I think that love can be obviously romantic, and so many people find it in that way, but also just as friends. I mean, I can't say enough about that. Yeah. So I would say that we've all experienced love in some way.
That was a beautiful way to put that, and the connection piece. And I really feel that, and I feel how you all have this connection. Some of you didn't even know each other that well before our time together today. If you were to talk to yourself, freshman you in high school, I know for some of you it's going back a little bit, and tell yourself, hey man, you don't need to worry about this. This isn't something you need to be concerned about. What would you tell freshman you? That you just don't need to worry about it. So stop and enjoy something else. And let's see. I'll start with you, Helen, and then we'll work our way around the circle. What would you tell you?
Love being the pioneer always. I think when you said bring me back to your freshman year of high school, not college, it was a little bit unexpected, but I think it still applies true to anyone who's entering college too, or entering high school. I think when I entered high school, I went to a pretty selective magnet high school in Richmond. And when you go there, you are just so impressed with everyone. And that's great. That means you're amongst a community of motivated individuals. But on the other hand, it can really take a toll on your mental health when it comes to self-comparison. And you think there's like a model of success. Like, for example, my high school did Model UN, did a lot of certain extracurriculars that were, you would look to those role models and you think, I need to follow their ABCD path to get to XYZ college that you find really amazing. And for the longest time in high school, you don't know what the formula is. I think a lot of people think college is like getting in is like a formula. To some extent it is, to some extent it's not. And to the extent it's not, it's like I would follow these people's footsteps. I would kind of do what they do, because I thought, oh, that's the secret sauce. That's what I'm gonna do. But in the end, it felt very inauthentic to me. And I would say to anyone who's in that freshman year of high school or even going to college, especially college, it's like kind of your time to release yourself and explore and make connections. And if something resonates with you, you will make a passion or a path out of that, per se. And it's if you ask me, like my freshman year of high school, if in college I would like create a mental health centered conference, I would have been like, what is mental health? And completely. And so there was a phrase that someone told me in my freshman year, two phrases: my own self on my very best all the time. So being your best at any moment is all you can ask for, especially during quarantine. And also comparison is the thief of joy. And I find that to be so true. When you go into an elite institution, you're like constantly thinking, I need to be this certain way. I need to do this. No, kind of just answer to yourself, and good things should follow.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Kyle, what would you tell you, something you didn't need to worry about that you've gotten way beyond?
A lot of things. But I would say, probably the number one thing is it doesn't matter what on earth anyone else in your high school thinks about you. Don't even think about it, because there are so many kids out there that peak in high school, or that all they care about is what you look like, and it's all, people keeping score. And I think, it definitely depends on where you're from. And I would say for sure, with being at school in a wealthy suburb from Connecticut, I'll be very open about it. That's how it was. And it's everyone's keeping score, and it's like, who cares? You need to do what's best for you. And I think I'm glad that I saw the light quick enough to be able to know WashU was my school, because I almost didn't. And it's all comes back to how I was raised and just the people I was around. So I think the biggest piece of advice for a first year student in high school that's just kind of getting into the, serious part really of school, in all honesty, you got to just focus on you and do what's best for you, and not worry about what other people think. And also, you should check out the admissions video for Washington University, because that video, I wish I could send the link right now, but it's out there, I'm sure, on YouTube, on the admissions site. It's just the best video that you could possibly imagine. And if you watch that a couple of times, you'll know why we all pick WashU.
We're gonna go on to Jack, and then we're gonna finish with Anne, because Anne, you are still on campus, and I want you to be the face and voice to welcome everyone with open arms. But Jack, what's that thing that you didn't need to worry about?
God, if I was going back and telling myself one thing not to worry about, it's like, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, if you take me in high school, I was a huge, like, stereotypical nerd, right? During lunch, we had the lunchroom, which is where most people ate. And then we had the commons, which is where, like, the cooler kids ate. I ate in the media center, which was the room where people did video editing. And I played Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh with my friends during lunch. And people would walk by, and, we were like, no one cared. Like, we did whatever. And we even one day, we reached out. We got a professional Magic the Gathering player named Sam Black to come into school so we could interview him with me and the trading card game club. Now, if you think that kid is going to go to a university and become the president of Interfraternity Council, who was very involved in Greek life. Like, that is something I would have never imagined. And like, when I got to college, it didn't matter who I was in high school. It didn't matter what I did in high school. Like, I'm just like, I want to try this. So I did it. So the biggest piece of information to freshman year, Jack, is it doesn't matter what you're doing now. If you want to do something else, just go do it.
Yeah, that's great. And you keep doing it. It's cool, man. Hey, do you game much? Because you got that really cool headset.
I used to play a lot, not as much anymore. Though during quarantine, it's been starting back up a little bit.
What are you playing?
Well, there's a new game that came out. It's called Valorant. It's very similar to Counter-Strike Global Offensive. It's in a beta right now, but it's a lot of fun. And I also play Super Smash Brothers Melee. So that is my favorite game of all time. I've gone to a handful of tournaments, and I love that game.
That's pretty. People get scholarships for that now.
Really? I didn't know that.
I don't know I know for like gaming and that. I don't know.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, for Super Smash, I was at a school and they were like, yeah. Anyway, okay. And finally, Anne, who is going to be a junior once this year ends, so you will still be on campus. You'll be a third year, and you're incredibly involved and want to help people and direct people and connect people and do all those things. So tell me, what did you not need to worry about in high school?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, these are terribly hard acts to follow. But I would say the biggest thing for me, I mean, I kind of relate to Helen in that, like, my school was there was a very toxic environment in high school, in that I always say this, but I felt like everyone was walking around campus in high school with like a floating GPA number above their heads. Like, it was like you knew what everyone's GPA was, and like you knew, like, oh, like she did bad on that math test and like blah blah blah. And like I wasn't like the perfect student by any means. I feel like I got like a B at least like once every semester or something like that. And like every single time that happened, I felt like world was crashing down, college goodbye, like there was no way out. And like, part of it was because like I didn't like my high school environment very much. And so the idea of college was so important to me. I mean, it was like I had to go to like my dream college, and otherwise like I'd be stuck here, and like I'd have to like continue to be a part of this like vicious, like kind of toxic environment that is kind of the Bay Area sometimes. And so I would say like I was so shocked, like kind of when I got into WashU, and it was like while it wasn't my first choice necessarily, it became like a dream to me, sort of. And it kind of like what Kyle was saying about like, you do the whole like you join the group meetings, and like you go on like the websites and you see the social media platforms that are happening, and the videos that WashU are posting, and that just kind of makes you forget every little thing that happened in high school, and it just makes you excited about the future. And I would say kind of my biggest reason for why that's why like to pick WashU, or why WashU is just honestly an awesome place to be, is like, we've been on this call for like an hour and a half now, and like I could still keep going for like another hour and a half, like
all of us could
asking questions. And I know, yeah, like all of us literally could. And I've been on calls with like prospective students that will literally last like an hour, and like it doesn't matter to me because I want to keep talking about WashU, as I'm sure everyone on this call does. And so, yeah, like if you're worried about college, worried about anything, like you can reach out to any of us and we will be here and talk to you for hours on end.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. Not only students who are currently on campus, but we have students who are recent grads, and I know that you're a representation of just the community and the connection. And Kyle, I love how you talked about just the love, and you all share something really special and wonderful, and I can certainly feel that. And I didn't know that this was happening at WashU. And it really is special and wonderful. So for anybody watching who wants to reach out to any of these people, like really do it. You're like, you seriously want them to reach out, right? Like you're okay with that, right?
Yeah,
Please do.
I reached out to students when I was in high school. That's how I got on the archery team. So do it.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Right. And do it. So do it. Talk to these people, and they'll connect you with some other people if they don't have the answers. And for all of you, I just want to tell you how grateful I am to have you here. And I know that, Helen, it's probably now 6:30, 6:40 in Nepal. You have an amazing connection. Your wall looks great, super bright. You were right. the world is lit up as we've continued this conversation. So for all of you, I just want to thank you again. I'm so grateful to have you here. If you could just stick for 1 sec, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody on the live stream. Thanks everybody for watching. I look forward to continuing this conversation. Let me know who you want to meet and the conversation do you want to hear. I'm Harlan Cohen. This has been Before College TV with WashU students. Thanks everybody.